everybody, it's the interview queen, Alicia Toot here, and you are currently listening to and obviously enjoying Queen's Court.
Hi, I'm the Asian sensation Kanji. You're listening to Queen's Court.
Hi guys, this is the Queen of Queens Visage talking, and I am so happy to introduce you to the Queen's Court.
All right, everyone, welcome to episode number 5 of Queeny Suggests on Queen's Court with your girl, the Queen of NE, and I'm so excited to bring you Miss Gizzy from the Deadass Girls Podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, girl.
Hey, Queen.
What's up, honey? How we doing?
I am good. Thank you for having me on the show. Well, one half of the Deadass Girls. Gina sends her regards. You know, she out here protecting us from this corona bullshit. So.
Oh, my God. Thank you, Gina. We miss you, but I appreciate you.
Exactly. Keeping us safe and sanitized.
Yeah, seriously. Where's the Purell? I cannot. Too much going on. But, girl, I am so excited to have you here. Your show makes me laugh so hard every time I turn it on. And, you know, my pal and our pal Benji Calavera told me, listen.
Yes. He is like a big supporter. Shout out to Benji. Always I always see him tag us in all your posts. So I'm like, all right, let me check out this Queen's Court. Let me check out Your Majesty out here, okay? and I just love the premise of the show. It's like short, simple, sweet, but it gets to the point. It's like a really cool thing. I listen to it on my lunch break, really.
Aww,
I only have a half hour, so I'm like, let me just bang out this podcast real quick.
Yep. I listen to y'all on my way home from work because I'm I need to laugh, honey.
Right.
I need to hear some girls. This is what's happening. Y'all had me dying on your last episode, but we'll get there.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, you're the best. And because of Benji, I was like, all right, let me check out these girls, and it's been nonstop laughter ever since. So I'm like, listen, I'm doing this Women's History Month stuff on Queen's Court where I'm having all female voices for the entire month of March. And I'm like, what podcast can I get? I'm like, I know.
Right.
I'm calling them right now.
That is such a cool project. And shout out to the women. And, you know, speaking about that, I definitely want to just kind of let y'all know about a little book project we put out as well. All right.
Yes.
So, Queen, this is your show, and go ahead and take the lead.
Girl, don't worry, I'll let you talk all about that. First, I want to talk a little bit about your wrestling fandom. Kind of let the listeners get to know you a little bit, and kind of what you're into. And we'll start with what really got you into wrestling.
Yeah. So, Gina and I. We both have brothers, and then growing up, of course, we grew up poor. We still only have one TV. So anytime we would share the TV, it was time for my brother to watch something. He'd watch wrestling, and then eventually I just kind of sat down and watched it with him. Like, all right, let's see what this is about. He got the TV for 3 hours now. And my love for wrestling kind of just grew from there, from watching it. And then it kind of led to our friendship because we met in high school, and we were sort of like the only girls in high school who really liked wrestling. So we were always just linked to each other talking about wrestling. So that's kind of how it's grown. Of course, our love for the nostalgic stuff versus the new things have changed as we got older, but it's still a pretty strong love for it. It's very deep appreciation. If anything, it went from watching it, oh my God, it's so cool, to watching it now. It's sort of like performance art to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an awesome way to look at it. I feel the same way. And, when you were starting to watch wrestling, who were the people that you immediately gravitated towards in terms of the superstars and talent?
Okay, so this is going to sound super corny, but I only liked wrestlers that I had a crush on.
Yes, girl.
So, I had the biggest crush on Matt Hardy growing up. So Matt Hardy, I loved Lita growing up. I had a huge crush on The Rock. And plus his promos were always A1. You could never touch that man on the mic. I was also a big fan of, surprisingly enough, well, not really, but Molly Holly, especially when she had that run with William Regal. Like, I lived for that little interaction. It was just so cute. And then to top it off, I would say as well, damn, I'm blanking on his name. I can't believe it. Mankind. There you go.
Mankind, yes.
Yeah. And I actually used to like wrap a belt around my face.
I love it.
Like my dad would be like, "Well, where's my belt?" And he'd be like, "What the fuck are you? Give me the belt. Give me the belt."
Like, listen, I have to do this, okay?
Exactly. He's like, "Listen, I'm trying to go to work. You over here looking like a damn clown."
Oh, I love that though. But isn't that fun when we were kids and like how invested we were in the wrestling and like how attached we were to these characters and all that?
Exactly, because you watch it on TV, right? You watch it on TV, you're like, oh my God, you're so cool. Like, I want to be just like them. So then you start dressing up like them, you start like doing little mini promos. Like, me and my brother used to always do like little mini wrestling moves on each other, which of course they told us like, don't try this at home. Meanwhile, my brother's almost choking me out here in the fucking living room.
Oh my God. See, there it is. I did that with my cousin too. We would always do moves on each other, like trying to like.
Right. And then we ended up having a pool. So we had a pool for one time. Like that one rare family who has a pool in New York, which is super rare. Right. So we used to do like wrestling moves in the pool, like the choke slam and RKO.
Yes, girl. The RKO was the best one to do in the pool.
Exactly, because you knew that you were not going to get hurt. Like, the water was going to protect you.
Yeah. Worst thing is you're going to get water up your nose.
Oh, yeah. Like, so much chlorine I swallowed. It's not even funny.
It's so true. But, you know, from then, wrestling has evolved so much into where we are right now in 2020, from, you know, watching as kids to now. What is keeping you into wrestling? Like, investing in it in 2020?
So one thing that's definitely keeping me invested is how fucking fine these men are looking. Like, yes, I don't know what it is, but the wrestlers are evolving. They're getting sexier. Yes, no, but besides that, it's just let me not be too thirsty on the Lord's Day.
That's okay. We can be a little thirsty, but not
a little thirsty.
Yeah.
But it's just seeing the evolution of the type of wrestler that we're seeing. Like, I mean, we grew up seeing like these big, you know, sweaty, like beefy men with like muscles upon muscles, and then now it's like you can have a guy that looks like Keith Lee who gets a push.
Yes.
You can have a guy who looks like Kevin Owens who gets a push. You have Nia Jax. You have, and you know, it's just seeing women of color. Like, you know, growing up, that's one thing I never really connected with. Is like, I don't see a big girl. I don't see a woman of color. Now I have Naomi. I have Nia Jax. I have Ember Moon and Sasha Banks. Like, it's great to see that they're finally branching off to, you know, branching away from that stereotype. And it's also really just like the evolution of the style of wrestling. Like, back then, you know, we thought an elbow drop was like the hottest thing in the world. Now you have like super athletic guys like Mustafa Ali and Ricochet and Seth Rollins who are like pulling off like these high flying stunts. I mean, yeah, we have Rey Mysterio, but it's good to see, you know, a little bit more finesse in the ring, so to speak.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. When you can turn on things like, you know, AEW just had their Revolution show, and Sammy Guevara pulled out that 630, and I'm over here like, excuse me, sir, this is the second match of the show. Tone it down. Relax.
Right, like, yo, like, if I was a wrestler back there, I'd be like, you know what? I'm not going out after that. What am I going to do?
I'm going to sit down.
Like, what I'm gonna have to do? I'm gonna have to do a 1080. How is that possible?
I know. Well, the high flyers, and you're so right. Like, the way the people look now is so different, and they're celebrating different cultures, and they're pushing new body types and more body positivity, which I love. And, you know, a lot of, I'd say, like, what traditionally smaller wrestlers, you know, we're used to seeing those very, very tall and, you know, towering figures like a Drew McIntyre, for example. Right? That type of man body type. And then we got people like Daniel Bryan absolutely killing it.
Exactly.
And I love that we've gotten to a point where we don't turn on and see the champion. Well, we do right now because we're in a little bit of a mess. But, you know, it doesn't have to be, put it that way.
Exactly. So that's really what's been keeping me going, and also the new wrestling productions. I mean, I'll keep it buck hunted right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Deadass Girls do not watch AEW, and I'm pretty sure you've heard us bash AEW a lot.
I did. That's all right.
So we don't watch it, but that's not to say that we don't respect it. Like, the fact now that we have so many other options of wrestling to choose from is kind of making it exciting. Like, hey, if I don't want to watch WWE, I'll watch AEW, or I could watch Total Impact, or I can watch like all these other promotions that are coming out, like New Japan and stuff. Like, so I think that is also what's keeping us going. It's like, hey, we have options now.
Yeah, a ton of options right now. And aside from those awesome ladies that you mentioned, are there any other favorites right now in WWE that you're like, that's my dude, that's my girl, like ride or die?
So Gizzy's faves right now for women, given Women's International Month.
That's right.
So definitely Naomi, Sasha Banks. So Nikki Cross, right? Like I feel like people don't give her the due that she's old, but Nikki Cross was like in one of the best groups in NXT, and she was a pivotal person in one of the biggest NXT stories that we had, who attacked Aleister Black. So, I feel like once they separate her from Alexa Bliss, I feel like she can shine. Another person that we don't give enough credit to is Ruby Riott. Like she steps it up. All right. So, and also Sonya Deville. Like, I kind of wish that they, if they broke up Mandy and Sonya, just let her do her own thing. She could definitely shine. And then of course, Shayna Baszler. Yes. At first, I was not a Shayna fan. I was like, listen, she's boring. She's like a female Brock Lesnar, in my opinion. But the homegirl has been putting in the work in the lab. Like, she's been improving her mic skills. She's deadly in the ring. Like, she carries a lot of matches a lot of times.
I agree.
And she's just become such a charismatic person in her own right. Like, just watching her become so comfortable in the ring has made me realize, like, oh, she is somebody to watch out for. So, I'm riding hard for my Baszler girl.
I love that. I like Shayna Baszler a lot too, and I think that she's really coming into her own. I mean, she's obviously very talented in the ring. I don't think anybody can argue that, but she's really made a lot of improvements on the mic, and she's super intimidating, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're gonna do with her, at Mania. So
exactly, yeah, totally agree.
Things to look forward to. But speaking of things to look forward to, it's all about this show, Deadass Girls Podcast, honey. So, can you tell me a little bit about it and the listeners a little bit about, like, a little bio, if you will?
All right. So the Deadass Girls Podcast, founded by two flagrant women from New York City. We get together every 2 weeks and we just talk about, yes, we are a wrestling podcast, but we talk about other stuff. We talk about our sex lives. We talk about music. We talk about fashion. We roast people all the time. And, we also give our own predictions and our own reviews. So it's really a culturally collective podcast. It's sort of looking into the mind of a female wrestling fan who clearly has other interests in mind, so to speak.
Right.
So we wanted our podcast to feel like a conversation amongst friends, right? Because, like, where you're sitting around with your friend, you're drinking, you're doing other things. And typically the conversations are never clean. And typically the conversations are so way off base. It's like, hey, why don't we just sit down and actually record it? So that's what our podcast is. And we have the Deadass family. So we, anyone who listens and anyone who shows us love, you're introduced into the family.
Love that. Yeah, it really is sitting down and you guys talk about it all. And that's the thing that I find so endearing about your show. How long have you two been podcasting together?
So it's been 2 years now, which I'm surprised. Like, 2 years have gone by so quickly.
Right, it flies, huh?
And I feel right. Like, it's like, what? Like 2 years already? It's 2020. So we actually, our first episode debuted after the Royal Rumble of 2018.
Nice.
So we were like, listen, let's get our equipment, let's sit down, let's do it. And then we just kind of been doing it since, and we've evolved during it. So in the beginning, we used to actually try to script ourselves, so to speak. We try to sound like, professional journalists and like, oh, we know our shit.
Yeah.
And then eventually it was just like one day where we're like, listen, this is not us. This is not how we speak. This is not how we act. Just turn on the mic and be ourselves. And then after that happened, like, we really saw a lot of people appreciate, like, oh my gosh, like, thank God that they're finally just acting like themselves. Like, they actually sound like a couple of friends just, talking shit on the couch, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that part, and it's what I think a lot of people love about your show. And I know a lot of us are really curious. Deadass, where did that come from as the name of your show?
So that's funny you say that, because I was literally telling Gina, I'm like, listen, we need to do an episode where we explain the name and explain the failed names. So it took us a while to narrow down the name for the show. So the reason why it's Deadass, so for those in New York and Jersey too, just the Northeast, so to speak, like, Deadass has a lot of meaning, right? Like, you could say, like, oh, are you Deadass? Like, are you serious? Or, like, you could say, are you joking? Or, so it just takes so many forms. And we figure, like, hey, the podcast is going to take forms of different topics. Why don't we just call it something that, is true to us, like, true to our New York roots, but it's also something, it's sort of like a state of mind. Like, hey, I'm keeping it deadass, meaning that I'm keeping it 100. I'm keeping it factual. I'm keeping it real. And so that's us. So we just two girls who keep it real.
Yes. And I love that, because when I first saw the name of your show, I'm like, oh my God, yes, someone else says Deadass.
Exactly.
Like, 'cause I'm from Connecticut, so I'm not too far.
Yeah, so y'all say it too. Exactly.
Yes.
It's like it's a Northeast slang. So we do have like listeners from like other parts of the world, and they're like, what do you mean a dead ass? Are you talking about a dead animal? I'm like, no, it's like, it's just a state of mind, all right? Like, you gotta be from here to understand it.
That's true. Thank you for explaining that, because I was like, I think that's where they're going with that, but I just want to make sure.
Of course.
Yeah. So since you've been podcasting for 2 years, what do you feel has been like the most enjoyable part of it for you?
So the most enjoyable part of podcasting with Gina, it's actually just the time that we spend together. So now that, we're getting older, and obviously we have other priorities, we don't get to see each other as much as we used to before. So, like, having that scheduled time, like, hey, we're going to get together, we're going to record, we're going to talk. And it's sort of like our own therapy session. Like, we just kind of let out what we want to say to each other. And I think the fun part, too, has just been interacting with others. Like, so I'm more of an extrovert than Gina is. She will literally just, like, stare at you in silence and not say anything. So I gotta bring that out of her. So we kind of just bring it out from each other, because sometimes I need to be reeled back in. So just being able to just interact with people on Twitter and Instagram, and just getting the positive vibes from everyone. And sometimes there's a couple of jokers out there who want to say something, and I was like, hey, we are gonna roast you, and we don't care, because this is how we are. And I think the most enjoyable part too has been like learning the ropes of podcasting, and also interacting with other people who podcast. Like, I kid you not, when people recommend us to other people, I'm like, why would you do that to them? You want us to ruin their podcast? You really want us to go on their respectable show and fuck it up? Like, listen, we'll come through, but don't say anything when your podcast fails.
Listen, if they can't handle it, get out of the kitchen, honey. That's what I say.
Right. Like, it blows my mind all the time. People are like, yo, you gotta have Deadass Girls on the show. I'm like, Gina's like, why? Like, you want us?
Yes. Because you guys are real. You don't bullshit people. That's one of the things I love about it. And I was listening to your most recent episode, and you were talking basically about that concept of like, people are listening to us, like, what is going on? They're gonna be like, oh my God, you're so vulgar. Just get out of here with that.
Exactly. It's like, listen, there are 1,000 of other podcasts you can listen to if you need something more clean and enjoyable. But another thing too is, and I don't want people to get it twisted, like, we are not being vulgar just to be vulgar.
No,
like, we're not pushing the envelope just to be like a shock jock, so to speak. Like, this is how we literally are 24/7, 365. Even, I mean, obviously, not at work, but if you hang out with us, outside, just regular shit, this is literally how we are. And that kind of, we want to convey that to other people. We're not trying to be malicious. We're not trying to, intentionally hurt people's feelings. We are saying this because this is literally how we act. And if you can't handle it, listen, I'm sorry. You can move on to another person. All right.
That's right.
No harm, no foul.
That's right. Real is good, I feel like, in 2020.
Yeah,
a lot of people are, have been kind of hiding a little bit and not being their true selves. I love when people just embrace who they are. I think that's the most powerful thing that you can do. Speaking of powerful things, what is the goal for 2020, or maybe multiple goals for 2020 for the Deadass Podcast Girls? What are you looking to do?
So the goal, I mean, we are definitely trying to do a lot of collabs. We're trying to steal your listeners. I'm joking. we're trying to,
we can timeshare them.
We could share the listeners,
Yes, of course.
We could mix in the little Kool-Aid, okay? Definitely just trying to reach out and do collabs. I think it's been a little hard for us only because we've done collabs in the beginning, in the first year when we were podcasting, like, oh my God, let's do this. Like, right. We took on more than we can handle. But now that we've really reeled in ourselves and we kind of found our ground, so to speak, we're kind of being selective. All right. So we heard it here first on Queen's Court. We are being selective with who we collab with. Why? Because we've had some people who have been kind of whack. Right? I'm going to be dead ass about it. We've had some people who have not matched our energy and clearly don't know shit about the show. So then they'll come on and then they'll put on this act. And it's like, listen, we don't need you to perform. We don't need you to pretend to be something else. If you're not comfortable with how we interact, that's cool. Like, we are, we would accommodate you. Like, we will, try to make you as comfortable as possible. But don't come on here, like, trying to put on a show. Like, that's not what we're doing. Another goal is merch. So we are working on some merchandise. People are actually asking for it, surprisingly. So one of the things we're going to be doing is some pins and T-shirts. Gina had an idea of doing dildos. Listen, if y'all want deadass dildos, we can definitely do that.
Yo. Listen, the people need some things in their life.
Yo, we gotta be right. Like, we gotta be creative with our merch. It's like, listen, I know y'all be having T-shirts and pins, but how about some deadass sex toys? Like, right here, okay? We are a sex posse.
Yes.
Right. So we'll definitely let you know when that's in the pipeline. And I think another goal is just to be able to, continue to flourish with our podcast and just continue to interact with everyone. We definitely kind of want a more response from people, I feel like, we're getting heard, but, it could definitely be better. So y'all need to step your game up, people. All right. Come on. Come through.
Come through for the girls.
Exactly.
Right. Hop on board the train, honey. You won't be disappointed. I promise you. I got to thank you for coming on. And before we go, I want to hear all about this book that you were telling us about.
Yeah,
so, hear about that.
Celebrating Women's International Month, we had this awesome time collaborating with Jason Norris from the UK. This is our UK bloke. He put together a book from different women's perspective on wrestling. It's called Women Love Wrestling. It's out now. You can buy it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble's online. So he kind of reached out to, like, female podcasters, indie wrestlers. There's two badass women who are writing a dissertation on wrestling for their PhD.
Nice.
Okay, so he reached out to all these women from all these backgrounds and just sort of, we all contributed sort of like our own passages into the book. So we wrote about the indie wrestling scene in New York City. I mean, it's only natural that we do that.
Of course.
So it's such a good book. I mean, you get to learn about, like, there's one indie wrestler who, I forgot her first name. She goes by something the Rebel, and she just kind of documented, like, the trials and tribulations of being a female indie wrestler, and, like, her battle with depression and like her insecurity with that. And it's just such a great read because you have different voices. You don't have, like, that stereotypical one fan. It's like different fans of different levels. You have someone who just started watching it, versus someone who's been watching it for decades. And definitely a great pickup for women who are thinking about going into wrestling, either professionally or as a fan. And it's also not a lot of knowledge. Like there's passages where they break down the terms, they break down what kayfabe means, they break down the moves, and so it's not intimidating. It's not meant to be for someone who's an expert. It's meant to be for anyone.
Wow, that sounds awesome. So definitely going to be checking that out. And if you wouldn't mind, would you please let the people know all of your important social media information so they can come follow you and the show?
Of course, Queen Girl. All right. So Deadass Girls, we keeping it simple. Twitter is at Deadass Girls. It's the same thing for the Instagram at Deadass Girls. If you want to follow our Facebook page, it's called the Deadass Girls Podcast. Or it's either Gizzy, Gina, whichever you want to follow. And for listening pleasure, we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher. Just Google our name and you'll find the link. All right. That is super easy.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And thank you so much again for coming on the show. It's been my pleasure to talk with you. And I hope everyone goes and follows Deadass Girls Podcast. From me to you, Queeny Suggests, episode number 5. And of course, enjoy the rest of your day. And please be kind to one another.